Hello, hello, Amajot here with your self-love series where I am talking to amazing people about their views, stories, ideas, tips, tricks, stuff about self-love because I'm really interested in what the hell self-love means, how do we experience it, why can it sometimes feel difficult or even impossible, and sharing stories and sharing the love around self-love. So that's what I'm doing. There've been a few interviews before already. I'm always looking for more people to work with. My goal is to interview 300 people this year. I think I've interviewed probably about 30 or so. So if you'd like to have a one-on-one chat about a conversation about self-love, about what it means, about maybe why we get stuck sometimes. Hi Kat, I'll bring you on in a sec. Why we get stuck sometimes, then I'll put the link in as well. But if you're joining, even if you're joining the replay, then ask any questions or share your experiences around self-love. Today we're going to be talking about how can we fit self-love in when there are other relationships and things to manage in our life, and what might the challenges be around that. I've got Kat Williams and I'll let her introduce herself in a minute, and we're gonna start talking. So let me bring Kat on, and then I'll also just share this in a few places as well. Okay, let me see. I'll add you, Kat. There you go. You can see that, and it will bring you on.
Ooh.
Hey!
Hey, it worked.
Yay! How you doing?
Good. Yeah. Fine, thank you.
Good. I was thinking of you because I literally just spent the last 10 minutes. I was like, oh my God, I have to start soon. I'm trying to get a fly out of the flat, and it was so noisy. I can still hear the buzzing.
Last time it was wasps, so.
Wasps, yeah. So whenever Kat and I talk, there's always some sort of flying insect in the vicinity. I don't know what that means. So I was just telling the guys on here about the fact that I want to have as many conversations around self-love and understand it as much as possible, to share my experiences. My self-love journey has been a long one, and probably more and more so in the last sort of 6-7 years, and it's really changed. Like, I was reviewing it the other day and I was thinking about what's changed, and I think self-love is really kind of ebbs and flows about our experiences, along with the experiences that are going on in our lives and the people that we're spending time with and the challenges we might go through. And I think it's cyclical and it ebbs and flows as well. Like, we might learn something, we might implement something, we might change something in our lives, and then something else comes along, and then it's that kind of journey all over again.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, so I'm really glad to have you on here to talk about some of those things. So would you like to introduce yourself? And whilst you're doing that, I will share this on my personal page, and then if you want to share it on your page as well, that'd be cool.
Yeah, when I've figured out how I do that, so I can do that while I'm on, but I'll figure that out. This is a kind of a
yeah, or you can do it
experience
afterwards
for me, or afterwards. Well, I guess I'll introduce myself through that concept of self-love, actually, because my journey has been twisting and turning as well. So I've been a relationship counsellor for 12 years, and before that I was a military wife, which is part of my story that I trained when I was out in Germany. So I've been working with a lot of military couples. But really that time I was asking the question most myself was when my husband was on the front line in Afghanistan, and I knew that I had 7 months of, I don't know that if I can do this. I don't know how to do this. And I had very small children, and I could have had that knock on the door at any moment saying, he's not coming home. And really that was when I started to research I had the Keep Calm and Carry On poster on my wall. And that was just kind of the inspiration behind the book that I ultimately wrote during that time, which was really all about how do you find self-love in a period when then there's so much you can't control. Because similar to you, that's what I realized was the answer, was like, oh, those of us or I was looking around at my fellow military wives, and I was a relationship counsellor at that time. I'd already moved several times before then. So I thought I had the answer. You know, I thought I'd found it out for myself and my clients. And actually, life threw this massive thing at me. And I thought, oh, actually, I'm not sure how to do this. And it turned out the answer, from what I could tell from the stories that then went into the book of all the military wives around me, it was the ones that managed to love themselves even when they were frightened and even when they didn't know what to do. And it was that I went, oh, okay, right. And then it's a kind of, so, and they each did it in a different way, but that was the fundamental common factor. And that's really what I've done ever since. So since the book, I now work with children and, you know, all the other things that I do, but it began with that.
I love that. And I love what you just said before, that loving yourself through the things you can't control.
Absolutely.
Like, that was just,
because it's easy to do when you can control everything. Yeah, it's not hard to do when everything's fine. It's really so hard to do when nothing's fine, you know. And you're like, okay, so now how do I do that? Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I am listening. I am just sharing this. Let me do this because I can't multitask and don't wish to.
I'm just realizing I'm hot, so I'm going to put a fan on as well.
Okay. I'm just going to share this. And I'm just thinking if there's any other places I can share this to. I'll leave it for now, and then if I think of anywhere else to share this to. I don't think I can share it to your page, so you might have to do that afterwards. But yeah, I absolutely, you're spot on. And I think that's where the cyclical stuff and the ebbs and flows come in, is what you said about it's self-care and self-love is easy when things are good. And when things are not good, when the chips are down, when there's stuff you can't control, it's then more important. You know, it's even more important, and it can be more challenging to do it.
Definitely. Yeah.
So I know, so thank you so much for contributing to this. I know you do a lot of work. We've kind of met through the resilience angles. We both work around resilience, which I think is all about self-love as well, like building and boosting your resilience, and how you manage the challenges in your life are also easier when you can identify and choose that self-love for yourself. So and by the way, if anybody's joining, say hello, let us know, share your experiences, what your thoughts come up as we're talking. We'll share what we know, but feel free to ask any questions or share what you know around what we're discussing as well, even if it's on the replay. So you do a lot of work. So share a little bit, actually. So you said a little bit about your self-love journey. Before we go into kind of your experiences and what you know and what you'd like to share with other people, I'd like to hear a little bit more about what is the definition of self-love for you?
I guess that's a hard one, isn't it? And I find it hard because I'm a relationship counsellor. I think everything I do is in relationships. So I guess I admit that I don't know why, I just feel that I'm always in relation to others. So I find that quite hard to answer as an individual. So I think when I think of it as a famous phrase in relationship counselling is, I'm okay, you're okay. So it's always about because self-love isn't I'm better than anyone else. It isn't narcissism and I'm amazing. It's not that. So if it's not that, then it has to be actually I'm okay and you're okay. And because I accept and love myself, it means I can accept and love you, which is healthy self-love. So I guess that's why I have to kind of put in that healthy self-love first, because in the work I do see a lot of unhealthy self-love, i.e. narcissism, which actually comes from a root of self-hatred fundamentally, but that's kind of going into it quite deeply. But actually, it's this false self-love that's not true. So yeah, I don't know if that's my thoughts.
Hi, Susie. Yeah. And so that's I love that definition. And so far, when I've been doing this work, I've had so many different definitions of self-love, and that's why I love doing this work. But I love that what you said about I'm okay, you're okay, and the fact that healthy self-love, you know? And I think healthy self-love, I'm okay, you're okay, really makes it okay to love yourself. It means, and what that actually means. So, you know, you talked
Yes, because
about,
otherwise I think you might get caught up in the, but I'm not better than anyone else. And I said, no, that's not what self-love is. It's not saying you're better than anyone else. It's saying that you're equal, and that
yeah,
we're all accepted as we are, and we all deserve to shine in our own particular way. Not that I'm better than you or that I need to shine brighter than anyone else. I just deserve to shine as much as, and that's what I
yeah,
like
yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. And what you said about unhealthy self-love, like what could be examples of that?
What could be examples of that? Well, I suppose I can only think of my recent clients, and it becomes, for me to be okay, I have to make you not okay. That's
Mm,
fundamentally what I see quite a lot of. And it's like, and which is abuse. A lot of people think that
yeah.
love of others, actually they think it is abusive, like, because they'll say things like, well, if you didn't do that, I wouldn't have done this. And I'm kind of there to talk about responsibility. Like, love of yourself actually comes with responsibility for who you are and how you behave. Because if you love
Mm,
yourself, then you're asking, who do you want to be? And it is you. So if you're being abusive, it's like you're saying, giving someone else a responsibility to make you okay. And if they don't, then you don't hold responsibility for your actions because it was their fault. If you hadn't
yeah,
done that
yeah, yeah.
to me, I wouldn't have done it back. And I'm kind of, well, hang on a minute. You are never, you don't give away your responsibility to somebody else, because that's a slippery slope that I then see ending up with, yeah, she has to, or he has to keep me completely happy. Otherwise, I can't be responsible for what I'm going to do. And then you're like,
Yeah.
which can include, financial abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. And they justify it by saying it's because I don't feel okay about myself. Right. And whose responsibility is that? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, and I think that's such a fundamental, isn't it? It's the responsibility, and
Mm,
who are you giving responsibility to for yourself?
yeah.
Like, who are you giving that responsibility to? And isn't that such a great question to ask yourself when you're thinking about self-love? Like, if self-love is I'm okay, you're okay, and you're not feeling okay. Hi, Gosha, by the way. Just had a couple of people
Ah.
joining on and off. So, if the definition of self-love is I'm okay, you're okay, and you're not feeling okay, isn't it a wonderful question to ask yourself, who might have I given responsibility to for me?
Absolutely.
And then how can I take that responsibility back? What might I need? And I know that there's certain times of the month where I kind of feel a little bit lower, certain times of my cycle where, I'm feeling lower in energy, and I just want comfort around me, whether that's people or whether that's, like the TV, or, just snuggling on the sofa or whatever it might be. And actually, what I asked myself was, if I'm looking for comfort, how can I give myself some comfort? What
Yes.
do I need right now? And then giving it to myself, I thought was such a brilliant act of self-love for me. Like, it was just like, ooh, isn't that a nice
Yeah.
question to ask myself? So it's definitely something amazing about taking responsibility for what you're wanting, yearning, needing, and just asking yourself in that moment, how can I give that to myself, rather than putting the expectation or the responsibility on somebody else to do it.
Yes.
So
And yes, because only you can really answer that question. And I mean, I've brought a couple of the analogies I like to use. This is my little car, so I
yeah,
won't talk through it all the time. But I use this as an analogy for self-love. So I'll share it with you and see whether you think it makes sense to you.
go
Because
on.
as we said at the beginning, we're on a journey, twists and turns. So if we imagine we're a little car on the road, we don't know what's around the corner. We don't know if it's going to be up hills, down hills, potholes along the way, lots of bumps and all the rest of it. Um, and we can't control any of that, and any of this metaphorical weather either that life can throw at us, or how other people drive. So that's the bringing in the relationships there. And other people on the road can sort of, just completely be ignorant of your needs, or just pull straight in front and just not be helpful, And a lot of relationship issues, they will come to me and say, it was like a car crash. There I was thinking everything was fine, and suddenly, bam, out of the blue, I'm on this completely other road. So the self-love bit comes in with the engine, because as I say, the only bit you can actually control is the engine of the car and how you choose to drive, and the fuel that you're running on. And if you're running on, I feel okay about myself, then the exhaust fumes out of the exhaust they remain, even when you can't control any of that, you remain compassionate to yourself, you remain loving to yourself, kind, considerate, and therefore generally like that to others. So that self-awareness part of sort of when you're running on, when you're not okay, you might notice the emotion change first. You might think, I feel a bit frustrated, I feel a bit like annoyed or angry or hate or whatever it is. And then you actually have, that's the exhaust. But it came from an engine that said, I'm not okay. I'm actually, and it comes from fear fundamentally. The opposite of love is fear. So if we're saying, can I cope with this, that stress question, and this was what I was asking, you know, frontline Afghanistan and husband and all of that, can I cope with this? And I was kind of, no, I don't know how. And I became frustrated with my children. I thought, I'm turning into a parent I don't want to be. I'm turning into a person I don't want to be. And I've got to ask myself, how can I cope with this fear? What do I need to do to help me to feel okay? And that's what changed. That changes the emotions and your behavior and everything else. So that's why I like my car analogy.
I love it. I love it. I use car analogy with my resilience work as well. It's so
Oh,
useful to
great.
use car. Yeah. That's, and I love that. I love that version. Especially with the exhaust, like what comes out at the end, what's produced at the end comes from a source and comes from that engine. And so it's worth looking at that engine and asking the engine what it needs, or does it need oiling?
And
You know, does it
especially
need
in
a
relationships, because what can happen is you're confronted with someone else's exhaust. So your children, your partner, other relatives, friends, whoever, they could be either annoyed with you or just annoyed in general. And what you're hearing is the frustration and the anger and the rage, and you respond to that as if it's the thing that you should be responding to. Whereas actually what we should be asking ourselves is, what are they afraid of? What's happened to their self-confidence, their self-worth, their self-respect? You know, what's affected their engine, how they feel about themselves, their self-love? That's the question we need to be looking for. The exhaust is like a red herring. You know, don't focus on that. That's the byproduct of their fear and what's going on for them. And you've got to speak to that part of them and ask, you know, one of my favorite questions is, what would be most helpful? And it's kind of trying to get to that engine of saying, and sometimes I can't answer that, but you're trying to answer the question. I'd like to know. Don't sort of offer platitude, because a lot of what I see is like, well, shall I do this, or shall I do that, or maybe this will be helpful. And you're trying to answer the question that you haven't actually asked, which is, how can I be helpful? What would be most helpful? And then we have to ask that to ourselves, like you did. In this moment, with these emotions I'm feeling, what do I think would be most helpful for me? Right, I hadn't actually thought of asking that. Okay, well, if I asked that, what would I answer? And then there's a path, a new way of helping you get back on track, I think.
Yes. Lovely. So, what are some of your own self-love practices?
Yeah, well, another of my analogies actually that might come to in a minute. But I did this exercise for myself. Now you come to mention it, I sort of forgot because it was a while ago actually. And as I came back so after that time, we were in Inverness at that time that my husband was away, and then we moved to the prairies of Canada, which was a real time when I found it very difficult to find what I needed. But I knew I had to keep loving myself and keep calm. So I managed little bits. But when I came back to the UK, where I am now, been here for 4 years now, settled, I went back to music. So one of my loves, music and dancing, are my sort of self-loves, because I've always played in a brass band, and it'll be unusual to people, I'm sure. But what a brass band gives me is those 6 elements. I might not remember them all, but you have certainty. So every Thursday I go, and I feel certain that every Thursday I go and play in the band. I have connection because there's other people there. I have significance because if I'm not in my seat, someone's going to notice. I have growth because I get better, in theory. I play the tenor horn, by the way. And I have contribution because I'm making a difference to that band. So I think most of them kind of love, connection, certainty. Oh, and uncertainty is another one, variety. And they come from Tony Robbins, I think. So once I realized that, I kind of realized that's so important. It fills me up, and I love it because there's all of those elements in one. And then the other one for me is dance. So I went back to a lot of the questions I might ask clients often is, when did you feel most yourself, really? Kind of most happy with yourself, or loving to whatever, however you put it. And often my sort of mock theory is that time might be before all the stress of exams and works and everything kicks in. Well, it was for me. So when I asked that question to myself, I thought, it was when I was dancing, and I was doing ballet and tap, and I just loved it. And I thought, I want to dance. I need to dance. And so I dance every Friday morning. I don't work. It's my ballet time, and I go to ballet and I go to tap dancing. And I just, like, there I am. I'm imagining that I am that ballerina that I always wanted to be, even though it didn't quite work out. But in my head, I'm there.
And I imagine it's with the dancing, it's not where you got to, it's what it gives you. You know,
so that's my act of self-love. Is I go to band, and I do ballet, and they're the things that I really keep in. I think, amongst other things, like simple things for me. I don't take my phone upstairs. It's an act of love to go to bed and read a book. If I take my phone upstairs, I know that actually there's something going on with me that I feel I need it, and then I have to think, oh no, you slipped, you made a mistake, you don't need it. What you need is to read a book and quietly go to sleep. And I think, oh yeah, I forgot, that's what I should do. And it makes such a difference when I do that. Or listening to Woman's Hour, I don't know, just a little thing, if I can fit that in, I'm like, I love this. I love, little things like that for me are really important. So yeah.
And I think that you've hit the nail on the head there with what you said, is the little things. Like, it doesn't have to be, the self-love practices don't have to be this massive day out, like a spa weekend, which I think is great if you can, if you have the time for that, then brilliant. But I think given the world we live in right now and how many demands and other relationships we do have to manage, that it's okay to have those pockets, those little things and those moments. And
I think that's the answer, because otherwise you do get a bit of a, well, maybe I don't have time for self-love. So you sort of move it to one side for a while, and then because you think you can't fit it in, and then you realize you trip yourself up and you're not in a great place. And then comes another of my things. In comes the gremlin voice. Hello. This is my little invoice. I use this with children. So in comes the gremlin voice. Oh, here I go again. Oh, I've been an idiot. I haven't been looking after myself. Oh God, I'm so stupid. Nasty, negative way to speak to yourself. And that's again another act of my self-love, is to try and keep my Winnie the Pooh, my best friend voice, because Winnie the Pooh is everyone's best friend in my work with children. That's how I represent it. So I really do try to speak kindly to myself. This gremlin turns up, of course it does, like every day, I guess, in the little ways. Oh, should I have done that, and am I doing the right thing? And I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I've got lots going on, but I really try and keep that. Come on, you wouldn't speak to someone else like that. You wouldn't speak like we do to ourselves sometimes. A good friend of ours, we would not speak to them like we speak to ourselves. So I try and say, your best friend is yourself, and you can be a good friend to as many people as you like, but your best friend is yourself, and let's actually do that. So I do try and do that.
Yeah, I love that. And and I think that gremlin that says nasty things in your head,
keep him out.
I think honestly, it's made the biggest difference in my life to notice that gremlin, and to even know that that gremlin played such a big part in my life. That constant, oh, you're an idiot, even for just dropping something, or oh, for God's sake, get a move on, or whatever it was that used to constantly plague my gremlin voice in my head.
Some people I speak to, it's so loud, and they've listened to it for so long, and I'm kind of, please, if you only do one thing, turn the volume down. I mean, really.
Someone said to me the other day that your gremlin screams at you, your best friend whispers. And it's about changing that volume round the other way. And that can take practice. Like,
It does.
honestly, that's been one of my biggest pieces of work in my own life. And it does
Same.
take practice, and it's remembering it, and it does get easier. It's just a habit of a lifetime that you're changing. And it does get easier. I promise you it does.
Yeah,
I've seen
yeah.
it happen with myself. I've seen it happen with the people I've worked with, and it definitely, like, change. You can change that volume. It's the noticing it, and it's
Yes.
the creating the
Yeah.
awareness first.
Accepting it. So I am a big one of acceptance. So I will say to people, again, don't let the gremlin come in and say, oh, I've such, I can't get rid of the gremlin. Kind of, no.
Yeah,
Everyone
exactly.
has a
Yeah.
gremlin. So I'll always sort of say the most successful people you can think of, or the people you most admire, they have a gremlin. Trust me, it's there. All they've done is learn to say, you don't get to define me. I don't need to listen to you. I know that you're there, but you're the one saying, you can't do this. You're not good enough. And you kind of go,
Yeah.
well, sorry, but I don't agree. I get that you're there, but it doesn't make you
Yeah.
right. And I can actually say, I'm just going to feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
try. I never said I had to be perfect. This is one of mine. I remember, actually, I'll share this. I haven't shared this with anyone, I don't think, but this was a real moment of, I had my little boy, Freddie, who Lucy and Catherine are watching. Hi. So they'll know his name. And he came along, and I didn't expect that this overwhelming terror would come with him. I didn't know that would happen. You don't know what's going to happen because I'd never had a baby before. So I
Okay.
remember kind of sobbing on my own in the ward in Germany, by the way, with people that didn't
Wow.
speak. I thought I couldn't communicate with them particularly well, and it had been a very terrifying experience. But I remember saying to myself, kind of thankfully, I didn't know about this really then, but I had that instinct. And I said, I never said I was going to be perfect. I was kind of in the midst of my sobs going, I don't have to be perfect. I just have to do my best. It makes me want to cry now, actually, because so many parents and mums particularly will come to me and say, I'm failing. I'm failing as a mother, and now I'm failing as a wife, and I'm failing in my work, and I'm not doing anything right. And I kind of want to weep with them and say, you're perfectly you. What's perfect? What the hell is that? Like, love the imperfect you. Like, we all can only do our best. And we never signed up to some sort of perfection. I don't remember signing something that said, oh yeah, I have to do everything perfectly. I'm not allowed to make mistakes. Like, what a load of rubbish.
Yeah.
So I do just try and say, yeah, of course I make mistakes. The difference is I just do my best and I say sorry, Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's about, oh, I have full body goosebumps. Thank you for sharing that.
I'll weep in a minute. Yeah.
And I think that's, you're spot on there. I mean, I haven't had children yet, so I haven't felt that fear, but I can appreciate that. I can appreciate how scary that is. And I think that, especially if you like me, you have perfectionist tendencies, and
I did
it's
before
hard.
children. That's one thing that is out.
That's what I need to do to cure
Gotta
my
get rid of that.
perfectionism then, obviously. Yeah.
Good luck with
And
that. If you hold on to that as a mother, like, whew, good luck.
yeah. And and it is certainly, I think it's about letting life be messy. And children just, they're like that kind of tornado that come in and they will create the mess. So if you're not prepared for it, then it's going to be a shock. But I think what I've had to practice and starting to enjoy more and more is letting life be messy.
Yeah. And
And it's
valuing
not easy.
how hard that is. Like, normal life is messy, and there's a huge, like, achievement in that. I think we can be guilty of, I'll sort of look at the people, the ones that really excel in something in particular. And I admire so many, the sports people, all of those are incredible. And I really admire them. But I admire more the clients and myself. Let's give it to me. I admire myself for coping with everything that's messy and trying to keep all the plates spinning. Like, who said that's not equally valuable? And I've never been someone that sort of said, I'm really brilliant just at this. I've always been pretty good at lots of things, but not massively amazing at anything. But so what? Like, that doesn't mean to say I'm not as valuable as somebody who's climbed Everest or got an Olympic gold. Like, there's value in spinning all the plates and just living with that mess and helping others. I think we're all in this together. And unless we
Yeah.
admit that we don't know what we're doing half the time, then
Yeah.
then if we don't admit that, then how can anyone else come and
Yeah.
say, Kat, I don't know what I'm doing? I'm kind of like, so I'm right here with you. It's okay.
Yeah.
We can. I'm
And
going to
I
help.
think, yeah, exactly. That's where when we come together as a group, or when we talk to somebody else, or we ask for help, that we actually feel like relief. You know how much I feel so relieved when I don't find it easy to ask for help always, but when I do,
Yeah, it is hard.
it's the relief of sharing it. Like, what does help even look like? I think asking for help is an act of self-love, because,
Yeah,
and that could be just sharing something with somebody and not expecting anything in return, and not feeling like you have to give them something back because you shared something vulnerable,
yeah. And I'm
or,
really learning that
it's
at the
it's
moment,
the
actually.
receiving. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
my
me
journey
too.
at the moment. Like I sort of said to you, and you said, you can do it on your own. My act of self-love right now, in the last few months, and really moving forward, just in this period of my life, is to recognize that I don't have to do hard things on my own. Because I think, like I shared with you, as a military wife, one of the things I see a lot is we always do things on our own, and we're really good at that. And I remember saying, actually, the hardest part of moving back and settling in Civvy Street, as I call it, I mean, my husband's still in the military, but I live in Civvy Street, was learning
Yeah.
to ask for help, learning to say, because I didn't used to do it because it was too frightening. In the military world, you might make friends very fast and you might ask a few very rare people, but most of the time you can't ask for help for fear that it won't be there. So you just have to carry on. And I have had experiences that I won't share on here, but times when I kind of pressed on this, what I thought was a safety net, and went right through it and thought, okay, I'm not going to press on that again because apparently it's not there, So,
Yeah.
and that fear then made me sort of think, I better not ask. I better just carry on. So that's really just for me. Even now, I'm learning that one, and what you just said
Yeah.
about ask for help, but don't feel you have to recompense in some way. Yeah, that's the tough one for me, because I definitely have that little voice that says, you have to do something for them now. You're not allowed just to ask for help. Like, what about what you're going to give them? And
Yeah.
so I still have that. But yeah, a true friend. I had this lovely friend tell me something the other day, and she said, I've wanted to tell you for ages, but I just didn't know how. And she had nothing to worry, nothing to feel ashamed about, nothing to worry about. And I just gave her absolute unconditional love, because I said, I know you would do this for me. You
Oh,
would. And I sort of think, yeah, I need to realize that there are people that would do things for me because I've asked them to, not because they want something back. But that's why I've settled here. It takes time to build those relationships, I think. So, hi, Louise.
and
Louise is watching.
unconditional love. Hello.
Yeah.
Unconditional love. I mean, that's really everything, isn't it? And I think when we can feel that unconditional love for ourselves, it's easier to then feel it for other people as well. And it takes work. And that's okay. It's the step by step by step. And what you said about asking for help in the military world, I don't know that the civilian world is that much different. Like, I think
What?
we've all had human experiences of not wanting to ask for help, feeling like we're going to be too scared, or we don't know what the outcome's going to be, or feeling like we have to then give something back or owe somebody something,
Yeah.
or asked and then not gotten the help that we wanted at that time. So we kind of shy away from it, and we build this armor around ourselves that
Well,
says, yeah, I don't need help. I've
yeah,
already
and
given
that
you help.
question again, I wouldn't ask for the right help either. So what I've been guilty of is, like I said, that question, people don't ask you what you actually need them to ask. This is what I've realized. So if you're going through a really tough time, and when my husband was on the front line, this is when I realized this question. I wanted someone to say, how can I help you? And they didn't. That's what they thought they were saying. What they were actually saying was, shall I do this? Would it be helpful if? Do you know what? Maybe I should do this. And what you do when you're in need is you say, oh, okay, yeah, thanks, that'd be great. Or, oh, all right then, fine, yeah, they're lovely. But what you really want to say is, actually, not that, but could you do this? that would mean everything.
Mm.
But again, you sort of accept the help that you're offered because you're a bit afraid that if you ask for what you really need, they might say, oh no. But they don't need to. I don't want them to feel afraid. I do it differently now. So I kind of say, if you can't offer exactly what I need, it's okay, but I'd like to be able to ask. And then if maybe you can do part of that, then they'll say, I can't quite do that, but what I can do, does that help a bit? And you go, yeah. You know, and it's sort of
Brilliant.
that you're asking the right question instead of just accepting something that isn't actually that helpful, because I'm very guilty of that. You accept whatever help there is and then realize it's not actually that helpful at all.
That's not
But
what you wanted. Yeah.
but I thought I had to say yes because otherwise I've got nothing. You know.
So what I'm hearing so far is self-love is asking for what you want, especially in a difficult situation, even if you might not get what you want. Self-love is creating some sort of, you know, finding what you enjoy, like the dancing and the music,
dancing.
and creating pockets of time for yourself where you can commit to those things. And equally, self-love is also letting those be small moments as well. So the combination of the two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then asking for help, asking for what you want, and not needing to be perfect, letting things be messy is self-love as well.
Yeah, that pretty much, I hadn't thought about how I define it, but there you go. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm just like sharing back what I heard.
Remember
because,
that. Wow, you're a good listener.
It was quite valuable, I think. So, and I'm just aware, I know you want to go on the hour. So what can get in your way? What can get in the way of your self-love practices?
Personally, I think, in one word, it's always some element of fear. It's some element of, I don't know, I'll do it later, or I need to get through this list, or other people have bigger needs than me, so my children need to come first, my husband needs to come first, my parents need to come first. I've got a lot of, well, we all have a lot of attachments of these relationships that circle us. And actually, well, just to share with you, like I did briefly, I was speaking with children this afternoon and their 10-year-olds. And so I was asking them about self-love. And so they kind of drew into this theme of if you don't, one of the little girls.
Oh, I've lost you. Are you there? I've lost connection. Are you there, Kat? I'm just going to type because I think we've lost connection. We've lost you. Children telling us about self-love. Let me try and add you again, Kat.
Hi.
Hey.
I had a call come in on my phone, so that's what.
Oh, so did I. That's so funny. So I literally did it just now as well as I was adding you back in.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yes, you were talking about the 10-year-olds and self-love.
Yeah, you were asking about what can get in the way, and I was saying all those sort of tasks and other people's needs. And what she said when I asked her, this 10-year-old girl just today, because I knew I was coming on with you, and she basically said, well, you're a hypocrite unless you do for yourself what you sort of, want others to do. So she sort of said, well, how can you say to someone else, don't beat yourself up, or, give yourself time, or, put your needs first as well. And, she was basically saying you've got to fit your oxygen mask before you help others. And although that's quite a well-used phrase, that's what I try and remember in those moments. All these people connected to me will have nobody there for them if I haven't got if I can't breathe, like that's not, I
Yeah.
can't afford to go
Yeah.
down. I have
Yeah.
to pace myself with all this chaos, with all this normal life. I have to, this is a, you know, a journey, a marathon, not a sprint kind of thing. So it really is necessary and very important. And again, coming back to what we said at the beginning, this is I'm okay, you're okay. This isn't I'm putting myself more important than anyone else. No, I'm just remembering that I'm not less than anyone else. This is
Yeah.
equal.
Yeah.
And again, like that, what I would say to someone else, I must listen to myself, you know, and I must actually do it. Otherwise, I would be offended if they didn't listen to me. So why aren't I listening to me? Like,
Yeah, exactly. And isn't it, I just always think children are such a great benchmark for, you know, for resilience. Like I talk about how a lot in my resilience work and about how children are such great examples of what we kind of tend to forget when we're older with, you know, fear and things like that, where they just kind of fall over, cry, get up and get on with it, you know. And you know, relationships, fight with someone one minute and then forget about it the next, and then on you go, you know. The not holding on to things, being able to let go quickly.
living in
And
the
I think,
moment more. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, living in the moment, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And same applies to self-love. Like coming from children, you know, it's the same thing. Like, what a brilliant answer for a child to say, you know, you're going to be a hypocrite if you don't do what you're saying you're going to
Yeah,
do.
I know.
And
It was amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so what would you, I think you're spot on in terms of everybody has this network of other relationships that they have to manage around self-love. So and kind of, if you know, if I want to make sure that I stay in this I'm okay, you're okay space, how can people, I guess, what do you do when you feel like that? What do you do when you know, okay, there's an element of reminding yourself to put your own oxygen mask first, but when all of the priorities are coming in at once, what's useful for you, or what can other people do that can help them in that place to bring it back to I'm okay, you're okay?
Um, I don't, well, what's coming to mind, only because I used it the other day and I'd forgotten about it for a while. Have you heard of the emotional freedom technique? Have you heard
Yes,
of that
yeah,
EFT?
brilliant.
So, I mean, shall I just share it quickly in case anyone hasn't heard of it?
Go
Because I
for it.
like, so it's a tapping technique that anyone can look up on YouTube, just EFT. But
Mm-hmm.
like I say, I'd kind of forgotten it for a while, and then I thought, actually, I haven't been using this. And for me, that overwhelm when it comes in, you're tapping on the trigger points or the acupressure points, and they're up here, they're under here, and they're there, and they're there. But it's the phrase that goes with it. It's something practical to actually do. And you're saying, like, even though I'm feeling this way, or this is how I like to do it, whatever it is. So even though I'm feeling this way, I absolutely and completely love and accept myself. And it's that moment of calm. And for some people, that might just be breathing. It might be, for me, in a very lonely place. My hardest thing to cope with, my greatest fear actually, is not overwhelm and all those relationships. It's the absence of that. It's loneliness. And that was what I faced on the prairies in Canada, was nobody's here. And my children were there, but that was it. My husband wasn't there for
Mm.
15 months of the 20 that we lived there. And that was my hardest thing. And what I did was I had this little sort of safe place, and it was round the back of, if anyone's watching that's been in Batters, it was round the back of the school, kind of beyond the rodeo ground, proper Canadian. And I had this little space, and I would go there and I would talk to actually an old supervisor of mine that I felt safe with. And I would say, you know, it was like she was saying to me, "Are you okay?" And I'd be like, "I don't know." Honestly, I think you know, I'm going to be all right. And I would kind of just talk out loud, even though she wasn't there. And I'll advise that to people quite a lot. Get it out. Just say it out loud. Be somewhere, even though I had nowhere that I really felt safe, because I was scared for the entire time, lonely for the entire time, not really
Yeah.
finding anything that could really bring me my self-love. I did my best. I taught recorder. I taught little children. My daughter was 3, and I taught dance, because I said about dance. So I taught 3-year-olds dance. I did everything I could to contribute and to get what I needed. but I knew that I was surviving on too little oxygen, really. I came back to the UK, and I literally felt this, like the fact that I could breathe. I couldn't breathe there, and I knew it, but I had to carry on anyway. And the one place I could find that I could breathe a little bit was in this safe space, like I say, when I was honest, and I said it out loud to my imaginary Jan, she's called, and I just went, Jan, I
Yeah.
don't know. And she talked to me, she sort of said, you're all right, you're going to be okay, just talk to me, I'm going to help you through this. So yeah, I've never, these things come out, this is amazing, thank you, because you just don't
Body
remember this
goosebumps
stuff.
again.
I know, you don't
Yeah.
remember these
But
things
you know what?
until you ask a question like that.
And that's why I think this work is really important, because I think that, the amount of people I've spoken to now who have said, oh, I didn't even realize that was my definition of self-love, or gosh, this reminds me how well I'm doing. Because we can be really good at giving ourselves a hard time at saying, the whole gremlin thing again, I could be doing more, or maybe I could love myself more. The whole, it's like a complete catch-22, like I should be loving myself more. But actually, when we have a chance to review it like this, it's saying, I'm doing damn good stuff here. Like
Yeah.
I am doing good stuff. And I think review really helps. Like saying things out loud, like you just said, and finding things that work for you in that moment of overwhelm, rather than, oh my God, how am I gonna, or overwhelm or loneliness or whatever that thing is for you, that where you can't breathe, your own lack of oxygen, whatever that lack of oxygen might be for you, is finding your way to just get to that next step of bringing your breath back, whether it's literal bringing your breath back by breathing deeper, or the EFT, or the going to talk out loud, or the going to talk to yourself in the mirror, or going to talk to someone, and or going to do something creative, dance in the kitchen, like I like to do sometimes.
And I do.
And
do you use the analogy of a hot air balloon ever? Because I like it's, so I used, again, with children, but adults love it as well. So obviously you've got the basket at the bottom, and then this huge balloon, which literally, has to be filled up with air. So in this way, I talk about the balloon is the fear. We all feel vulnerable. Basically, it boils down to we feel not good enough or not loved enough in some way. And even if most of the time we're fine, there'll still be someone or something, some situation, like for me would be loneliness, like kind of, or lots of other things that I might think, I can't cope with this. I'm not able, I don't have the skills, or I'm not good enough. Or someone that makes you feel not loved enough, that you don't feel valued by them, and yet you have to have a relationship with them anyway. So that's kind of that heavy basket. And it's normal to have it, but like you're saying, we have to learn those little puffs of air that fill up the balloon. And in Canada, for me, I knew it wasn't completely full, but I knew I had to keep putting the air in anyway, as much as I could, find those little puffs of air, because you've got to lift up the basket in order to, to move, to go away, and not the negative strategies are kind of like tying the basket to the ground. So what I see a lot of, like for me, that's taking it out on yourself or taking it out on others, is like those kind of guide ropes that tie the basket to the ground. That's not taking you anywhere. Don't do that. Just try and fill up the balloon in whatever way you can, and then keep learning, and keep, that's what I'm loving about having this opportunity with you, is to sort of go, right, yeah, have a time to reflect, think about what you've used in the past, try and think about what you've forgotten about, or keep learning and growing, and wonder what else could maybe that I'm going to explore, and that's that being creative and learning, and and reaching out to others. I definitely, what I'll say to this, I do this for myself as well. If I do have a rubbishy day, and this works for me, so I don't like the mornings personally anyway, so I can just feel a bit kind of like ugh in the mornings. But what I do try to do is try and do something kind, because the second I kind of give a bit of oxygen to someone else, I realize I've given it to myself. So I'll sort of think, who do I just want to, who haven't I thought of recently? Who haven't I? Yeah. And I think that's an act of self-love, to show it, to give it to someone else, and to say, I was just thinking of you, how's it going? And then I instantly sort of think, I just feel a bit better. Oh, well, it's been a good day because I've just asked how they're doing. And even if I just do that today, I feel pretty good that I've done that. So, yeah.
And just asking, isn't it? And just that asking, or sending someone an I love you message, or I appreciate you message. it's that when you give, you received, and if it's out of balance, then yeah, it's definitely not going to work, and then you're going to run out of oxygen again. But if it's
Yeah,
like you said, it's
not.
conscious, like consciously choosing who can I be kind to, where can I spread some kindness, you're naturally going to get it back, can't you? It's like
Yeah.
sometimes, like, giving someone, way on the street when you're driving, and it's gonna, it kind of has a knock-on impact, doesn't it? Kindness,
Well,
someone's like,
it's
oh
like
my
that
god,
poem
I
about
didn't
the
expect it.
smile. Yeah, it's when they say about a smile,
Which
it
one?
costs nothing to smile, and yet
Yeah,
the repercussions, it can be like that butterfly effect. You don't know what difference that smile has had on that person. They might smile at the next person that they see, who might smile at the next person that they see. And it's just that
yeah,
idea of, or you face the world with a frown and unhelpful, and and where's that going to get anyone? So, yeah.
yeah, definitely. And it does. I think it is contagious.
Hmm.
Kindness is contagious.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
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 So we've got just under 10 minutes. What would you like to share with people around, whether it's tips, tricks, tricks, whatever tricks they might be? I mean, I think your analogies have been really useful. The car, the hot air balloon, the gremlin, the best friend. Like, I think they're all really useful. And going back to the topic of the conversation around managing self-love with other relationships around, and I think we all agree, and probably everybody watching and listening will agree, that we kind of talk about that oxygen mask and putting that on first. What else can be useful for people when they're thinking about self-love and managing other relationships along with that?
I'll see what comes. So, what else can be useful for managing relationships? Actually, what's come to me is, well, love languages. It's very important to speak the right language. So, I don't know if you've heard of the 5 love languages. Have you heard of them?
Yeah,
But I'll share. So,
Gary Chapman.
and that's,
Yeah.
and I suppose what I'm really thinking about here is about efficiency and effectiveness. That what I don't want anyone watching or thinking about self love is to sort of think that, like you've been saying, that don't sort of batter yourself with it and think it's hard work, and don't think that maybe loving someone else is actually really hard work. Actually, it can be hard work when we're speaking the wrong language, so we maybe have to take some time. So the 5 languages are touch, time, words, acts of service, and physical touch. No, I didn't know I said that one. Gifts. So it's kind of figuring out what matters most to me. How do I receive love most? And how do I, so I know that my husband actually is quite, he likes to receive, his is a cup of tea. So it's an act of service. He feels completely loved and filled up just when you say, would like a cup of tea? And he's like, oh, yeah. And for him, that just
Oh, isn't that
says,
good to know?
I'm thinking of you. I will do this for you. I will bring this to you. And it's not just a cup of tea. It's an act of love. But the other one where we differ. So for me, would it be a cup of tea? That's quite good. But it's not completely my language, the same as it's his, I think. For me, he bought me a book once about, I like to be a speaker and I'm developing that. And he bought me a book about talk like Ted. And it was before I gave my TED talk, and I was so
Yeah.
touched by that. And I'm not really a gifty person actually, but it was the thought that he'd passed through an airport and picked it up, and I was like, oh wow, that's so lovely. And so it's
Yeah.
things like that. It's making sure that you speak the right language, and if your partner is someone that likes to hold hands, and maybe it's not your thing, but it means a lot to them, or your children. And it's very important for children and anyone in our lives as well to sort of think, what is their language? How do they? Because if we love somebody, and this is coming back to where I sort of said when we first started that love is not abusive, and I will see people that say they love people, but they think that if I say I love you, then I love you. Whereas actually, no, well, love is felt. You only love somebody if they feel loved. Otherwise, it isn't love. Because
Mm.
you have to ask, how do they feel loved, and then you love them because they feel it.
And
Otherwise, just because you say, like, if I say I love the cat but I abuse the cat and I don't feed it, then I haven't loved the cat. The cat doesn't feel loved because it's hungry and it's
Yeah.
left outside in the rain. Just because I say I
And
love
you know
it.
what? That's
Yeah.
that's just made me think of self-love in that same context.
Yeah.
Is if you're not feeling good, if you're not feeling good in yourself, if you're feeling abused, if you're feeling hungry, if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling
Yeah.
exhausted,
Then yeah,
might have you been telling yourself you love yourself and you're not doing it? So physically,
yes.
and because I think, and that relates for me because I used to be really good at kind of like presenting a very nice outward picture of, you know, perfect makeup and hair and accessories and outfits, which I love. There's nothing wrong with that. I still like to do that. But inside, I didn't feel loved. I felt hungry, starved, tired, rejected, because
Yeah.
I couldn't see that. And, you know, and I wasn't. And it goes back to the gremlin, and it's like having a part-time job in self-abuse. You know, it's the same thing.
Wow.
That's why I realized. I was like, wow, I've got a part-time job in self-abuse. You know, like
Oh wow.
it's
Yeah.
that. It's asking yourself, where am I not feeding myself? Feeding literally, or, you know, emotionally or mentally. Where might I need to feed myself more? And
Yeah.
it
And I
made
think,
me, as you said that, I thought of that. Yeah.
and in a way, what I hear you're saying there is about it doesn't have to be hard. I think there's this guilt about self-love of kind of like, well, it's going to come at the expense of something else or someone else. And what I've heard
Oh
there
my
is
God.
actually
Yes.
when you get the recipe right, and I do love this recipe analogy. Actually, I've shared this with a lot of people that a good recipe isn't chucking everything in, and a good recipe isn't chucking in what someone else told you should be there. It's like, no, I'm making a curry. Well, yeah, but you need to put in, you know, some broccoli or something. I don't really want broccoli. Like, I know it's good for you, but So once the recipe's right, you like it and it's easy. Hopefully, maybe not easy to maintain. And the other
Yes.
thing about the recipe, it's not the same recipe every day. It might be a slightly different recipe next week, but it's your recipe, and you
Yes.
get to say, actually, these simple ingredients or this luxury ingredient every so often is my recipe and it's important to me, and it doesn't take anything away from anyone else when I've got the right ingredients, because I'm not chucking everything in and taking all the time in the world. I'm just taking the right amount of time, and the right amount of,
I
I don't know,
absolutely
energy and
love that. I love
yeah,
that.
just thinking.
Self-love recipes. I love that. Oh, my phone's
Yeah,
gonna die.
I hope my
Sorry?
phone's no, I hope my phone's not going to die.
I know. Well, I think we're starting to. It's getting a bit funny with the connection, but I know we've kind of hit 5 o'clock as well. So I guess we'll wrap it up because I know you have to go. I could still
Yeah,
talk about this. I love
I know.
how many different areas we have covered today. Like, it's
I've
amazing. This has
loved
been
it.
an absolutely amazing conversation. And
You
thank you so
did.
much for sharing your personal stories, your personal experiences. How I know there's going to be people out there who resonate with that. So thank you so much
No,
for
I've
sharing that,
loved it.
and all
Thank
of your
you so much. You've made me remember things I had forgotten, and what an amazing, experience. Thank you.
brilliant. Thank you so much. And actually, I just remembered there is also you can do a free love languages questionnaire, the Gary Chapman one.
Yeah,
And so I'll put the link in
five
for people who
five
are like,
love
ooh,
languages, I think .com with the number 5.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll put the link in below. If people want to get in touch with you, feel free to put in your contact
Website.
information
Yeah.
below, your website and everything, and I will upload this onto YouTube as well and share it around all the platforms, so feel free to do
Yay.
the same.
I
And
will.
thank you again so much. It's been brilliant. And
Oh,
anybody who's
thank
watching
you.
this who thinks that they could also contribute to this type of interview, or who would like to have a one-on-one conversation with me about self-love, feel free to get in touch. I'll put that link in below as well. And I will speak to you
Fantastic.
guys soon. Thank you so
I'll be
much, Kat.
encouraging people to do. Pleasure. We'll speak again soon.
Brilliant.
Take care.